The billionaire was halfway through his meal when he noticed something that didn't belong in a room this expensive. The waitress serving him looked terrified, not nervous, not tired, terrified. Her hands were shaking, her eyes kept darting toward the kitchen, and when she spilled a single drop of water, she flinched like she was about to be punished. He could have ignored it like everyone else always did, but he didn't. He asked her one simple question: "Why are you so scared?" What she told him shattered everything he believed about success, power, and the world he had built. That single answer would make him cancel meetings worth millions, walk away from his empire, and change 2 lives forever. Stay with this story, because what happens next proves that sometimes one moment of kindness can rewrite an entire destiny. The moment his eyes met hers, the room seemed to shrink. In a restaurant filled with polished marble, soft music, and the low hum of wealth, one young waitress stood frozen, her hands trembling around a tray that suddenly felt too heavy. The billionaire noticed it instantly, not the luxury, not the attention he was used to, but fear. Raw, undeniable fear etched across her face like a silent scream. And in that single glance, something deep inside him shifted, unaware that within hours, his entire life would come to a halt. Before the story continues, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel if you believe in kindness and second chances. Stories like this remind us that one small act of compassion can change everything. He had arrived late, as always, stepping out of a black car that cost more than most people's homes. His schedule had been carved into ruthless precision by assistants and expectations, and this dinner was just another obligation squeezed between meetings. The restaurant was exclusive, the kind where silence itself felt expensive. He barely noticed the faces around him until the waitress approached his table. She was young, far too young to carry such exhaustion in her eyes. Her shoulders were tense, her breath shallow, and every movement looked rehearsed, like she was walking through a minefield. When she placed the glass of water in front of him, her hands shook so badly that a few drops spilled onto the table, and she flinched as if expecting punishment. The billionaire had seen fear before, but usually in boardrooms, during negotiations where power was the currency. This was different. This fear had nothing to do with money or status. It was personal, human, and it disturbed him more than any market crash ever had. He asked her gently why she looked so frightened, not as a command but as concern. At first, she tried to smile it away, the kind of forced smile people wear when survival demands silence. But something in his eyes made her pause, something unfamiliar, patience. Her answer did not come easily. It arrived in fragments, in trembling breaths, in the weight of months of unspoken pain. She explained that the restaurant owner was not just demanding perfection, but obedience. Mistakes meant humiliation, late orders meant threats, complaints meant shifts taken away, and for her, losing this job meant losing everything. She was supporting a sick mother, drowning in medical bills, and hiding from a past she prayed would never catch up with her. The fear he saw was not about spilled water. It was about being one misstep away from collapse. As she stood there, words spilling faster than she could control, something inside the billionaire broke open. Memories he had buried long ago resurfaced, a childhood filled with hunger, a mother who worked until her hands bled, a father who disappeared when responsibility became too heavy. He had sworn never to be powerless again, and in becoming powerful, he had forgotten what it felt like to be afraid. He looked around the restaurant with new eyes. The polished floors suddenly felt cold. The elegance felt hollow. This place, built on luxury, was sustained by quiet suffering, and he realized something that made his chest tighten. He had helped build a world where success mattered more than people, where profit silenced compassion. The waitress thanked him for listening, her voice barely above a whisper, and hurried away, terrified she had already said too much. Dinner arrived untouched. He sat there, staring at the food, but his appetite was gone. His phone buzzed with messages from executives waiting for approvals, deals depending on his signature. For the first time in decades, he did not respond. His mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying her expression, her fear, her courage in telling the truth. He stood up, left the restaurant, and told his driver to take him back to his hotel. But sleep never came that night. He spent hours pacing, staring out at the city lights, realizing how distant his life had become from reality. Every success had come at a cost he no longer measured. He had canceled dinners, birthdays, relationships, all in the name of building an empire. And now one terrified waitress had exposed the emptiness behind it all. By morning, a decision had formed, heavy and irreversible. He returned to the restaurant early, before the lunch rush. The staff looked startled to see him again. He asked to speak with the owner, calmly, firmly. What followed was not loud or dramatic, but it was final. Contracts were reviewed, practices questioned, power shifted. By the end of that conversation, the owner's authority was stripped away. The billionaire had acquired the restaurant on the spot, not as an investment, but as a statement. But that was only the beginning. He found the waitress and told her she was safe. Her job was secure. Her hours would no longer be a weapon against her. And more than that, he offered help with her mother's medical care, not as charity, but as a responsibility he felt he owed to the world he helped shape. She cried not out of relief alone, but because for the first time, someone had seen her as more than labor. News of his actions spread quickly. People assumed it was a publicity stunt, a billionaire's attempt at redemption branding. But then he started canceling things, meetings, mergers, entire projects worth millions. He stepped down from boards, handed control to others, and walked away from deals that no longer aligned with the values he had rediscovered. Headlines were confused, analysts were alarmed, his inner circle thought he had lost his mind. What they did not understand was that he was finally finding it. He began visiting the businesses he owned, not for inspections, but for conversations. He listened to janitors, servers, factory workers, people whose names had never appeared in reports. He learned about their struggles, their dreams, their fears, and with every story, the weight of his past indifference grew heavier. He started changing policies, prioritizing mental health, fair wages, humane schedules. Profits dipped at first, and critics were quick to mock him. But slowly, something remarkable happened. Productivity rose, loyalty deepened. People worked not out of fear but pride. The waitress went back to school, encouraged by the stability she had never known. Her mother's health improved with proper treatment. She no longer flinched when a glass slipped or a plate rattled. Her smile became real. And every time she saw him, she reminded him of the night everything changed, though neither of them needed words to acknowledge it. The billionaire, once driven solely by numbers, found himself measuring success differently. He spent less time in penthouses and more time in ordinary places, where life unfolded honestly. He reconnected with estranged family members, apologized where pride had once blocked humility, and learned that strength did not come from control, but from care. Years later, When asked in a quiet interview why he had walked away from so much wealth and power, he did not mention the restaurant or the acquisition. He spoke instead about a look in someone's eyes that reminded him of who he used to be and who he never wanted to become again. He said that sometimes the smallest moment holds the greatest truth, and that ignoring it is the most expensive mistake a person can make. Just before this story ends, take a moment to comment below and share what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. As the camera pulls back from the city skyline, now glowing with possibility instead of ambition alone, it becomes clear that the billionaire did not cancel his life that night. He canceled the illusion that success meant standing above others. In doing so, he began a life rooted in meaning, compassion, and quiet courage. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness still has power in a world obsessed with speed and status, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Because sometimes believing in humanity starts with listening to one frightened voice and choosing to care.